niggas have been funky. And
somehow the video stopped in the recording, so I started part 2 for today.
Center of this entire massive effort. Just continue to make meals. There's thousands already done and thousands more to come. Food heals people. That's what we're doing.
Welcome back to ABC News Live. First, the Westminster Dog Show is underway here in New York, and while most pups at home aren't dog show ready, a few training fundamentals can really help. In this segment, sponsored by Good and Fun Treats for Dogs, Lara Spencer and international professional dog trainer Tom Davis look at the basics of dog training.
Thank you so much for being here. So let me ask you, when it comes to training, please help me.
Sure.
As a mom of 3.
Well, it's good to have fun with your dog, right? It builds a better relationship and it makes training more beneficial and more powerful.
Yeah.
And also, these long-lasting treats are great for mental stimulation. So as the dogs are working on these things, it gives them that primal urge to chew on these things like all dogs
Well, and
have.
then they get a reward, right?
Exactly.
Like if you do good for mama or dad, then you will get a treat.
Absolutely. And as they're chewing on them, it's also really great for their teeth. So it's kind of win-win.
Yeah, it is a win-win.
Yeah.
And the training does continue. Is it you know that saying about old dog, new tricks?
Yeah, I think you can you can definitely
You
teach
can.
them. Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, there's hope.
Just takes a little bit.
All right. Good to know, everybody. All right, so we have some more introductions. Listen.
In Washington contends that the new policy
Back when if we crazy.
They all get a little screen time, whether it's in front of your phone.
If we crazy, then I sit down.
Is I would start
But I
small,
mentioned,
like ask them
do
if
I
they're
sound
doing
done? Then I
something
sit there
funky
and
with
I'm
you.
thinking
If
people
they're
knowing
doing
this. I'm
that
back
funky,
to
they're
mention.
laughing and they're flirting and
I'm
they're
crazy
leaning in.
now. People hearing this shit.
To fund Israel, you know, I mean, year after year, we send thousands and millions of dollars over there to fight wars that should we really be involved in? I mean, it seems like a really touchy subject, and nobody wants to talk about it. Everybody wants to defend, but who says who's right and what's wrong over there? And why?
There is, as you know, Israel is the only functioning democracy in the Middle East, right? So the United States has defense agreements
That's what I
with
mean,
those,
crazy. I'm back
with
from
those folks
mention
over there,
if
but
we
it's-
insane. Just sit there and then all these people hearing this back when insane. If we insane, then I sit there. Them baby knowing this, them when I went crazy. So I sit there and don't say shit that's off my mouth.
I think it's a positive message right now.
I picked this cup because I have a chocolate lab at home and it reminds me of my Maggie.
They're also hoping to bring more attention and proceeds to the small self-funded cafe that also offers Novi Adult Transitional Center students a safe space to learn on-the-job skills and public socialization.
We're hoping that bringing attention to the cafe will help promote what we do here. It'll help families understand that all the money comes back to the district, so we can continue to do the programs in which we do right now.
More people coming in means more money to cover their costs and stay open.
It's a very expensive program to run here.
Anyone can walk in and get a sleeve at no extra cost while they last.
This is amazing. Love it. Very creative.
Teacher Chelsea Greenback says there's also a deeper lesson happening for the students.
I want them to realize that their voices and ideas matter. I want them to understand that even by doing like the smallest thing, by decorating a coffee sleeve, it can help change something.
In Novi, Christiana Ford.
It's February, and that means love is in the air. Flowers are a popular gift for Valentine's Day. More than 250 million stems are sold globally to mark the occasion. But there are downsides to these sweet-scented signs of affections. Flowers die quickly and come with an environmental cost. In the UK alone, Valentine's Day creates an extra 9 million kilograms of CO2, according to the company Business Waste. So some are turning to artificial flowers as an alternative.
When I first went into the business, if you said silk, faux, artificial flowers, everybody sort of raised their eyebrows and sort of said, oh, they're horrible, they look fake. But as I said, the technology has changed so much. And I think as the consumer goes out and sees them, they've got in friends' houses, in offices, in shops, in some of the department stores, they go to a wedding and they see amazing flowers. I think that's what's changed.
So take a look at these flowers. Do you think they're real or fake? The answer is they're artificial. Of course, even these fake flowers come with their own environmental costs, but producers of these flowers say the carbon footprint is lower than fresh flowers and they last longer. And the industry is catching steam. According to the marketing firm Grandview Research, global sales of artificial flowers topped $3 billion last year. That number is expected to grow by nearly 7% this year. So if you're looking for a gift that will last for your loved one this Valentine's Day, artificial flowers could be an option.
The wildfires in Los Angeles have forced thousands of neighbors to evacuate, and many will not have a home to return to. Feeding America supports communities before, during, and after disasters as part of a nationwide network. We're working closely with the Los Angeles Regional Food Bank and other nearby food banks to assess damage and provide water, food, and other essentials. Donate now to reach families affected by disasters like the fires at feedingamerica.org/disaster.
With Amazon Photos, Prime members get unlimited full-resolution photo storage and 5 gigabytes of video storage, so you can securely store your digital photos and use your pictures to create prints, books, and custom decor. You can also share and display your photos on Amazon devices, including the Echo Show and Fire TV. To get started, download the Amazon Photos app.
Alexa, call Yasmina.
Calling Yasmina.
Good morning, Yas. Okay, girl, gotta answer the first try. I love that. Headed to the office right now.
Open Air Audio lets you manage everything all at once and you never miss a thing.
This is Maggie. Maggie has always wanted more power, more security, more value. So when Maggie discovered Link's smart home security with more battery life, more simplicity, and more convenience without spending more,
He's a good boy.
well, it's given Maggie what she's always wanted. More. Blink and get more.
The stage is set for an all-out war between the executive and judicial branches, Team Trump taking aim at the courts as judges move to block parts of the president's agenda. I'm Scripps News' Andrew Rafferty in Washington, and this is Morning Rush. While President Trump has been busy signing a slew of executive orders, the courts have been pretty busy too, finding challenges after challenge to everything from Trump's attempt to end birthright citizenship to his efforts to shut down USAID. And on Monday, a federal judge in Rhode Island found the Trump administration in violation of an order to halt a widespread federal funding freeze. U.S. District Court Judge John McConnell ordered the White House to resume payments on January 31st, but the White House has yet to comply. Meanwhile, 2 key members of Trump's inner circle are implying that the White House has no plans to obey the courts. Both Vice President J.D. Vance and Doge leader Elon Musk have taken their takes to respective X accounts to fire shots at the judiciary, with Vance saying in part, quote, "Judges aren't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power," and Musk slamming those federal judges as activists, while a follower that democracy in America is being destroyed by a judicial coup. Joining me this hour is our Deputy Political Director, Joe St. George from Washington. And Joe, you hear folks in the media, certainly folks in politics, talk about a constitutional crisis. A lot of times it's overblown, a lot of times it's not warranted, but it seems like maybe we are getting into the territory where you can say that without bloviating too hard.
I think that's a perfect setup, right? And bloviating maybe the perfect verb in this particular instance, but it's certainly something that deserves a lot of context. I think we need to wait and see, obviously, what the Trump administration does next when it comes to all of this. Look, I think it's natural human nature for the Trump administration to be frustrated, right? What did they try to do? They tried to end birthright citizenship. They tried to freeze funding. They tried to work out buyouts. And many of these controversial and consequential executive actions have been met quickly with lawsuits from the left, in many cases from Democratic attorneys general from around the United States. And then you have a federal district judge imposing a temporary restraining order, blocking said action from going into effect. Again, natural human nature to be upset. Is it just red meat to post on X, which is where many of President Trump and Vice President Vance and Elon Musk, it's Musk's website after all, many of their most passionate supporters are? Or is this the beginning of what some legal experts, some law professors are already out saying, the beginning of a constitutional crisis? To expand on what Vice President Vance has said in recent days on social media, the Vice President posting, quote, "If a judge tried to tell a general how to conduct a military operation, that would be illegal. If a judge tried to command the Attorney General and how to use her discretion as a prosecutor, that's also illegal. Judges aren't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power." Elon Musk, in a separate post, going on so far as to say that some judges should be impeached. Again, I think we have to wait and see where this goes. Remember, there's one ace in the back pocket of the Trump administration, if you will, and that is a pretty conservative-leaning Supreme Court. Any progressive attorney general could go to let's say, a Democratic-appointed federal district judge, get a ruling, wait for that to play out. Ultimately, those cases goes to appellate courts, and those appellate court cases ultimately can go to the U.S. Supreme Court, where if you look on paper, Trump does have an advantage, at least at the surface level, of more conservatives being on the U.S. Supreme Court than Democrats, than Democratic-appointed justices. But I think the frustration, Andrew, and you know this better than most, lies with the speed, the shock and awe in which the Trump administration wants to change policy. If this thing gets dragged off into a court game, I mean, we could be talking years before the Supreme Court ultimately hears a case, let's say, on whether Trump has the authority to end the federal funding on certain levels or worker buyouts. The pace of the courts, they're not exactly known for being quick. Let's just leave it there. So more to come on this front for sure. But the American Bar Association is out with a pretty interestingly worded statement in recent hours, saying that they are just encouraging everyone to obey the law and respect the law. They don't support, they don't condemn or condone any administration, but they certainly hope that both parties respect the rule of law in this country. More to come on this front for sure, Andrew.
Yeah, and Joe, the other thing that I've been really interested in over these past few weeks of the new Trump administration is how Democrats are responding. You hear a lot of Democrats or the political talking class saying that they're a little bit flat-footed in all that action that you just described, keeping in mind that they lost the popular vote, that they lost all the battleground states. You're up on Capitol Hill for us this morning. Have you seen any sort of semblance of a strategy by Democrats in how they're going to counter all this action that we've seen out of the White House over these last few weeks?
Well, and some lawmakers have been pretty candid when they've been asked this question to some of our Scripps News Group reporters around the country. And they said, look, we're in the minority. We're limited in the power that we have here on Capitol Hill, and that we have a bit more of an advantage. I'm thinking of Democratic Senator Tim Kaine, for instance, who said that they had a bit more of an advantage by going the legal route. I think, though, there is a growing desire, certainly among progressive advocates, certainly some younger members of Congress, for Congress to do more to stand up to the Trump administration. One opportunity that may be brewing is this funding fight to keep the government open. That's going to be a big talker in the coming weeks. Government runs out of money come October. Do Democrats move in any cohesive way to possibly shut down the government over some of the policies of President Trump? I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but there's no doubt a debate over, okay, who's leading the Democratic Party now? Who's leading this opposition? After all, you have President Biden. He's gone. Vice President Harris, she's gone. And they're looking to their leaders, Senator Chuck Schumer in the Senate and Congressman Hakeem Jeffries in the House, to see the direction that goes next. No doubt it's going to be one of the big stories we'll be following here at Scripps News in the weeks and months ahead.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fascinating. And Joe, you're going to have a front row seat for so much of it being up on Capitol Hill for us. Our deputy political director, Joe St. George. Joe, thank you. Let's get you to news happening where Joe is on Capitol Hill. A busy morning up there. Fed Chair Jerome Powell is facing the Senate Banking Committee, where he is set to answer questions about the state of the economy now and going forward as the president continues to impose tariffs on foreign countries.
To start new businesses, grow existing businesses, buy a home, and pursue their American dream. Chairman, I look forward to your comments and your testimony. I'll simply say that I believe that weaponizing an independent agency like the Fed for liberal positions, from debanking crypto, bank stress test, and the green financing scheme, is not calling balls and strikes as a fair referee. And I hope that we are getting ready to clean that slate, start afresh, and focus on a healthy economy. Ranking Member Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chair Powell, it is no secret that you and I disagree on the need for strong bank regulation, on monetary policy, and on the Fed's stock trading scandals. We have sharp differences, but I believe you are a principled public servant who cares about this country. We are at an unprecedented moment. Our financial systems are facing huge risks from the economic chaos of President Trump and his co-president, Elon Musk. From on-again, off-again tariffs to on-again, off-again layoffs for tens of thousands of government workers, to on-again, off-again cuts in domestic grain purchases, to on-again, off-again support for medical research. Now, co-president Musk and his OMB director have frozen all work at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. There are now 0 cops overseeing the $18 trillion consumer lending market. 0 cops. Investigations into illegal foreclosures and auto repossessions canceled. Exams of giant credit card issuers to weed out unlawful junk fees canceled. Probes of illegal debt collection practices canceled. Rules to save people billions of dollars canceled. If Musk and his OMB director succeed in killing the CFPB, it's like putting a sign on every checking account, every credit card, every mortgage application, and every car loan. Cops have been fired. Let the scams begin. That is not all. Musk and his Doge crew are also rooting through the Treasury's most important payment systems, the financial plumbing that ensures that billions of payments go through, from Social Security checks to grants for community health centers. No one has verified how they got this access or what they are doing with it. No one has checked whether Americans...
Listening to a Senate hearing, Senate Banking Committee hearing. Jerome Powell, the chair of the Fed, is up on Capitol Hill, but we've already heard Elon Musk's name and the potential threat Senator Elizabeth Warren feels that he poses. We are going to take a break, but we'll return with more after this.
With Amazon Photos, Prime members get unlimited full-resolution photo storage and 5 gigabytes of video storage, so you can securely store your digital photos and use your pictures to create prints, books, and custom decor. You can also share and display your photos on Amazon devices, including the Echo Show and Fire TV. To get started, download the Amazon Photos app.
wildfires in Los Angeles have forced thousands of neighbors to evacuate, and many will not have a home to return to. Feeding America supports communities before, during, and after disasters as part of a nationwide network. We're working closely with the Los Angeles Regional Food Bank and other nearby food banks to assess damage and provide water, food, and other essentials. Donate now to reach families affected by disasters like the fires at feedingamerica.org/disaster.
Maggie wants more without spending more, so she got Blink Mini 2 cameras to help her see more, catch more, and do more. Blink and get more. Maggie has always wanted more, so she got Blink Smart Home Security with the Blink app. Only the Blink app gives you Blink Moments, which stitches together footage from all your cameras. So you can see what happened in an instant. Oh, boomer. Really? Get more of the story with the app that gives you more. Blink and get more. Maggie has always wanted more, so she got Blink Smart Home Security with the Blink app. Only the Blink app gives you Blink Moments, which stitches together footage from all your cameras. So you can see what happened in an instant. Oh, boomer. Really? Get more of the story with the app that gives you more. Blink and get more.
You're watching Scripps News, part of the Scripps News Group.
We're going to go back out to Capitol Hill where you see Senator Elizabeth Warren on your screen. She is participating in a Senate Banking Committee hearing this morning with Chair Jerome Powell. Let's listen in.
That the instructions were manipulated and the Fed may have no legal method to override them. Chair Powell, the next 18 months may define your legacy and the country's trust in the Fed as an institution. I expect that you will work with Democrats and Republicans in Congress if Doge's next move is to try to commandeer the Fed's payment system. I also expect that you will not join the conspiracy to shutter the CFPB. Unlike the Treasury payment instructions, you can see if the CFPB's funding requests have been manipulated. I understand that some extremists have a different view about what the law ought to be, but under the law right now, impoundment is clearly illegal. Do not make the Federal Reserve an accomplice to this illegal act and forever sully the reputation of the Fed. Keep the CFPB funded exactly as the law requires. We are in the middle of a crisis as Elon Musk tries to take over our government. But let's also talk for just a minute about your day job, meeting the Fed's dual mandate of promoting maximum employment and stable prices. It's now clear that the Fed acted too late and let inflation get too high, and then responded by keeping rates too high for too long. These policies made the big drivers of inflation, like housing costs, even worse. And they put Americans' jobs at risk, making it more difficult for them to afford a home and for small businesses to be able to finance their operations. I urge you to move more rapidly to bring down interest rates, beginning with a meaningful rate cut next month. You have proven you can move quickly when it is politically expedient. After President Trump was elected, within the space of just a few weeks, You scrubbed seemingly all mention of diversity and inclusion from the Fed's website. You withdrew from an international central bank group that shares information on climate-related risks to the financial system. You instituted a hiring freeze that will limit the number of cops on the Wall Street beat, and you announced plans to gut big bank stress tests. I can see the immediate political appeal of your strategy, but ultimately it will fail. You will lose good people. Climate catastrophes will continue to mount, and the increasing vulnerability of big banks will threaten our entire economy. Sure, Donald Trump may be happier with you right now, but wading deeper into politics to please him over the long run will burn the reputation and the independence of the Fed and put our entire economy at risk. I urge you, don't fall into these traps. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am. Today we'll hear from Chair of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, on the semi-annual monetary policy report to Congress. Chair Powell, thank you for your testimony today, and you are now recognized.
Chairman Scott, Ranking Member Warren, and other members of the committee, I appreciate the opportunity to present the Federal Reserve's semi-annual monetary policy report. The Federal Reserve remains squarely focused on achieving our dual mandate goals of maximum employment and stable prices for the benefit of the American people. The economy is strong overall and has made significant progress toward our goals over the past 2 years. Labor market conditions have cooled from their formerly overheated state and remain solid. Inflation has moved much closer to our 2% longer run goal, though it remains somewhat elevated. We are attentive to the risks on both sides of our mandate. I will review the current economic situation before turning to monetary policy.
You've been listening to Federal
Recent
Reserve
indicators
Chair
suggest-
Jerome Powell delivering what is his semi-annual report to the Senate. It's the Senate Banking Committee. We're going to take a little bit of a break, but return with more after this.
Despite being on an antidepressant, I was still masking my depression symptoms.
My doctor said it could be because my antidepressant alone wasn't enough, so she recommended an add-on treatment. She recommended adding Rexulti.
When taken with an antidepressant, Rexulti was proven to significantly reduce depression symptoms, more than an antidepressant alone.
So with my antidepressant, Rexulti could provide a boost.
Elderly people with dementia-related psychosis have increased risk of death or stroke. Antidepressants may increase suicidal thoughts and actions and worsen depression in children and young adults. Call your healthcare provider right away to report new or sudden changes in mood, behavior, thoughts, or feelings, or if you develop suicidal thoughts or actions. Report fever, stiff muscles, and confusion, which can be life-threatening, or uncontrolled muscle movements, which may be permanent. High blood sugar can lead to coma or death. Weight gain, increased cholesterol, unusual urges, dizziness on standing, falls, seizures, trouble swallowing, or sleepiness may occur.
Could adding Rexulti
Be right for you.
Ask your doctor about adding Rexulti.
When emergency strikes, first responders are the first ones in. But on outdated networks, the crucial technology they depend on is limited. That's why T-Mobile created T-Priority, the only solution built for the 5G era that can dynamically dedicate up to 10 times the capacity for first responders. T-Priority, built for tomorrow's emergencies. Ready today.
Your floor manager has been with you since day one. Now without it, you feel back at square one. You need to hire.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Our all-in-one hiring platform connects you with quality candidates, and you can easily schedule and conduct virtual interviews right from the Indeed dashboard.
Well, it's UCLA. I got my BA in business management.
Huge news. You can get a son of for just $3. Wait, I said son of. Look at the words. Son of Baconator is $3. Thank you. For bacon that just won't quit, gotta be Wendy's.
You can tackle all this with just half a power sheet. Toss like a boss. Arm & Hammer Power Sheets bring 3 times more small loads than premium towel detergent at the same price.
I can.
Welcome back to Scripps News. You see Fed Chair Jerome Powell on your screen. He's testifying in front of the Senate. Let's go back out to Capitol Hill and take a listen.
1,000 per month over the past 4 months. Following earlier increases, the unemployment rate has been steady now since the middle of last year, and at 4% in January remains low. Nominal wage growth has eased over the past year, and the jobs to workers gap has narrowed. Overall, a wide set of indicators suggest that conditions in the labor market are broadly in balance. The labor market is not a source of
that President Trump wants to accomplish are included in our reconciliation plan. If you think about it, there are a lot of bills out there, a lot of ideas out there. There's only one plan that delivers all of the commitments and priorities that President Trump has, and that's the House plan. If you think about what we're trying to do with first getting a budget, then getting a reconciliation bill, it's going to be to deliver for border security, making sure that we can build the wall, making sure that we give our Border Patrol agents the tools they need, night vision goggles, other technology like drones, so that they can more safely and effectively protect and secure America's border from the massive flow of illegals that we saw the last 4 years. We're going to produce more American energy. Yes, in the Gulf of America, in Anwar, and every point in between, we're going to deliver in that big, beautiful bill more American energy that was shut off by the Biden administration, who coddled foreign countries, made us more dependent on foreign energy. We're going to reverse that and allow our country to deliver again, not just creating more jobs, not just lowering costs for families at the pump and at the grocery store, which it will do, but allowing us to be energy independent again and help our allies around the world again. Exporting LNG, for example, when Biden said no to that, we're going to be saying yes, which again lowers costs here at home. And then we're going to ensure that there are no Americans that see a tax increase. If Biden got his way, if Kamala Harris got her way, if the Democrats who are in the minority got their way, the American people would see a multi-trillion-dollar tax increase. House Republicans are not going to let that happen. That's part of our bill, is to continue the tax cuts from 2017, keeping those rates stable, adding on the priorities that President Trump talked about in the campaign, like no tax on tips, and giving real certainty to our economy to create more jobs, to bring more investment into America. That's what we're fighting to do, and we're going to deliver. The budget chairman indicated they may go as early as Thursday of this week in budget committee to start this process. But we're not going to stop working on this until it gets done. Failure is not an option. We're also going to continue bringing bills to the floor, and I think you heard Lisa McClain talk in detail about the bills we're bringing. Look, when you think about this idea of illegals coming here fleeing law enforcement and the harm it's caused, deaths it's caused to Border Patrol agents and others, finally bringing a bill to make that a deportable offense. That's a bill that got a lot of bipartisan votes last year when we brought it, but Chuck Schumer said he wasn't going to even allow it to come up for a vote last year. Well, again, it's a new day in the Senate, and Senator Thune and his majority are going to bring that bill to the floor when we send it over to him, and that will have a really good chance of getting to President Trump's desk, like the Laken Riley Act, where the president will be able to sign more legislation just in his first few weeks in office to deliver on those promises of securing America's border. The man who's been leading our efforts and working closely with President Trump to get this agenda moved forward is our Speaker, Mike Johnson.
Thanks so much, Mr. Leader, and to this leadership team, to Abe Hamadeh, one of the most talented new members of Congress. Glad you're participating this morning. It is a busy morning here and a great time in America. We were delighted to host President Trump in the Superdome on Sunday. First time a sitting president has attended a Super Bowl. As you saw when they put his image up on the Jumbotron, the place went crazy. There was a lot of excitement, enthusiasm about President Trump and about, I would say, the House Republicans in Congress. We were cheered on Bourbon Street. There's something happening out there because people feel this great sense of excitement, this anticipation, this energy, because President Trump is delivering on his promises. He's delivering on the agenda, and they know that we are as well. And so a lot of the things that are being done through the executive branch are going to be codified in the House, and we're working methodically to make sure all that is possible. There was a new CBS poll that came out that said 7 in 10 Americans believe President Trump is, doing what he said he would do. And that's promises made, promises kept. So you're going to see that continuing theme and the theme of restoring common sense around here. As I said last week, the Democratic Party is in a completely different place right now. There's no identified leader of the party. They don't have a clear vision. They seem rudderless. In hopes of finding themselves, they've latched onto this new shiny object called the rule of law. We'd like to welcome them to the concept. It would be admirable if they hadn't spent the last 4 years with their heads buried in the sand while Biden literally trampled over the rule of law with no objection. In fact, many Democrats cheered that lawlessness, like when the Biden administration unconstitutionally forced the middle class to pay the student loans of doctors and lawyers, when they illegally mandated that private companies implement vaccine requirements, when they radically rewrote Title IX to undermine women's rights. Those things were actually illegal, and the Democratic Party cheered it. They didn't oppose it at all. President Trump, by contrast, is taking legitimate executive action to root out waste, fraud, and abuse in all these federal programs. That's what the American people demand and deserve. That's what they voted for. They voted for a real analysis and a real change, transformational kind of change in the way the federal government works. And the only people who take issue with it are these same congressional Democrats who never before had any issue with unelected staff or even bureaucrats running the White House for the last 4 years. That's not what's happening here. The president has empowered his new cabinet secretaries and the DOJ effort and all of these branches, divisions in the executive branch of government to go and find where the abuses have taken place. And every time something new is unearthed and uncovered and we share it with the people, they applaud that this has been discovered and they want us to keep going. And that's what's going to happen. You heard a lot about what's happening on the floor this week. I just want to highlight one more thing, that the House is going to vote on the Midnight Rules Relief Act. You've heard about this, but this legislation will amend the Congressional Review Act to allow Congress to overturn multiple regulations issued in the final months of a presidential administration with just one single vote. That's important for efficiency purposes and because of the facts that we're dealing with right now. In the waning months of the Biden administration, over 1,400 unnecessary, harmful, last-minute rules were imposed. And those are things that hurt small business owners and hardworking Americans and families. And this is the type of legislation that will move this week that receives little fanfare outside these halls, but it has the real potential to make a substantial impact on the lives of everyday Americans. You heard a lot about, I won't repeat it, but the Agent Raul Gonzalez Officer Safety Act is critically important. And again, just one more example of how we are delivering on the promises, taking care of the border, making American communities safe again. We're going to be unleashing American energy dominance again and restoring our stature on the world stage, peace through strength, and all the things that make America strong and secure. And I'm delighted we have a commander-in-chief who's leading that charge, and it is a great delight to see him applauded all around the country, everywhere he goes, including at the Super Bowl. So I'll take a few questions this morning. Jeff, time for.
Mr. Speaker, this relates to the budgeting process and your statement that the Democrats have failed to engage in any meaningful conversations over the past few days. I was reading an article that quoted Jim McGovern as saying, well, first of all, you were full of blank. You can fill in the blank, a liar and a total shill for Donald Trump and Elon Musk. I've covered you for more than a decade, dating back to your time in the Louisiana legislature. Never heard anybody say anything like that about you, ever. And I wondered if you had a reaction to that.
Bless his heart. Look, the Democrats are flailing. Okay, I get it. They've engaged in some pretty crazy rhetoric over the last couple of weeks, and you know, we're going to shut down the city. We're at war. I mean, you know, we're going to fight them in the streets. And you've all seen that covered. It's because they're kind of in panic mode in the party over there. They don't really, as I noted, they don't really have a vision or a strategy. They don't really have a leader. They don't, you know, their platform has been openly repudiated by the American people in the election outcome. And so they're really in a tough spot. And so what people tend to do in politics in that way is they lash out at leaders on the other side. I don't take it personally. I don't think he can back up a single thing he said. What we're doing is delivering on the mandate that the American people gave us. Remember, President Trump got 77 million popular votes and the House Republicans got 74.8 million. It's the highest popular vote total that we've ever received in the House Republicans in this chamber. And we are executing on that mandate. And I'll tell you what we're doing is widely applauded by the American people because they see the results and they see the restoration of common sense and they see that this thing is moving in the right direction. There's a real energy and hope and anticipation out there. And it was not just people from Pennsylvania and Kansas, that were at the Super Bowl in Missouri or any other state that was there. People from all over the country were there. And Louisianians, and it was a great sort of microcosm of the country, just out in the streets in New Orleans, just enjoying it. And everywhere, people are saying that they're really excited about what they see happening in Washington. That doesn't happen very often around here, you all know. And so we're a part of that. We're excited about it. And when you're making big change, it ruffles some feathers. But this is positive change, good change for the country. We're excited to be part of it. So, yeah. Chad, I'm sorry. Okay, good.
You talked about codifying some of these things in the administration. Will we see some of that codification in the CR or spending round in mid-March, and or will we see that come the fall?
Well, the reconciliation process is where you're going to see the lion's share of that. And it is by design. I mean, everybody knows how it works. The reconciliation process is effectively a partisan a mechanism. It shouldn't be. I mean, what we're going to be doing are things that are great for every American, and we would hope that some Democrats come along with us on it. I hope they will. But the reconciliation package is going to have most of those provisions that are now along the way throughout the year. You'll see this flurry of executive activity and all the executive orders. A lot of it really does need to be codified so that it's more permanent. It can't just change every time you have a new election. So we're working through that list to try to see how much of it we can do. And so you'll see that as a steady stream throughout the year. So a lot put in reconciliation. Perhaps some of it in the approach process. We'll see how that develops, but then you'll see it as a steady drip throughout the year. So, yes. Go ahead.
More and more courts, federal judges, Republican and Democratic judges have said that some of the Trump actions, early actions, put a halt to them. J.D. Vance said that judges aren't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power. You're a constitutional law expert. Ultimately, at the end, if the courts say that the administration is violating the law, should they comply with the court's demands?
Well, of course, the branches have to respect our constitutional order, but there's a lot of game yet to be played. Those would be appealed. We've got to go through the whole process, and we'll get to the final analysis. In the interim, I will say I agree wholeheartedly with Vice President J.D. Vance, my friend, because he's right. What they're doing in the executive branch, I've been asked so many times, aren't you uncomfortable with this? No, I'm not, because when Congress, for example, appropriates dollars for the executive branch to use, we build in, not only in the spirit of the law, but in the letter of law, a broad amount of discretion for how that is used. There is a presupposition in America that the commander-in-chief is going to be a good steward of taxpayer dollars, that the commander-in-chief, the president of the United States, is going to command those within his branch of government to do the right thing by the people, to be accountable, to not fund drag shows in Middle Eastern countries or South America, to not waste our taxpayer dollars. And that's what has been uncovered. And that's why we and the people are applauding what's happening right now in the new administration, because they've taken that seriously. And they're doing it. The forensic audits, effectively, that Doge and Elon Musk are leading. I met with Elon yesterday about this to get an update. And to me, it's very exciting what they're able to do, because what Elon and the Doge effort is doing right now is what Congress has been unable to do in recent years, because the agencies have hidden some of this from us. There's a lot of oversight activity that goes on around here all the time, you all know, but when duly elected representatives of the people request information to find all of these abuses and it's not turned over to us, what it takes is an actual audit of the systems and the files themselves that are often hidden from Congress. That's what you're seeing right now. And that's why this is so exciting. They're uncovering things that we have known intuitively have been there, but we couldn't prove it. Now the proof is being provided, and no one can argue the counter to that. So stay tuned. There's a lot more to come. And I think that the courts should take a step back and allow these processes to play out. What we're doing is good and right for the American people. What Doge is doing is making sure that your taxpayer dollars, all of us, are spent in the way that they're intended to be spent, and that they're in America's interest, and they're financially responsible with the precious taxpayers' money. We have a $36 trillion federal debt, and we have got to get a hold of these things. You're going to see it reflected in the reconciliation package that comes forward. You're going to see it reflected in appropriations as we go forward, and you're going to see it in these efforts to cut the waste, fraud, and abuse. And we think the final number on that is going to be substantial and a game changer in Washington for the country. So we'll have a lot more questions and answers, I know, as the week goes forward, but I'll just tell you.
Under any proposal, Medicaid would not be on the chopping block?
Look, Medicaid has never been on the chopping block. What we're talking about is finding it's non-benefit related reforms to the program, right? Medicaid is infamous for fraud, waste, and abuse. I mean, by some estimates, large percentages of the dollars that are allocated there are wasted and stolen. And so we do right to go into those programs and find that and show the people what's happened and make sure it doesn't happen again. And if you eliminate fraud, waste, and abuse in Medicaid, you've got a huge amount of money that you can spend on real priorities for the country. And if you make sure that people who are able-bodied workers, men under the age of 40, for example, who have rolled on to Medicaid and gotten onto the expansion and need to be working, if you add work requirements into Medicaid, it makes sense to people. It's common sense. Little things like that can make a big difference, not only in the budgeting process, but in the morale of the people. Work is good for you. You find dignity in work, and the people that are not doing that, we're going to try to get their attention. So everyone needs to take a deep sigh of relief and understand that we're not going to harm any Americans with this. What we're doing is the right thing by the people, and we're excited to be a part of that. That's what you're going to see roll out. And on the budget, yes, a markup is going to be scheduled for Thursday. That's the intention. The budget chairman Arrington just spoke to conference and said that we'll be rolling out the details of that probably by tonight. If they notice a markup, they can do it by Thursday, and we are right on the schedule that we need to be on. So stay tuned for more developments. Thank you. Thanks, Aaron.
And one has to wonder how many different grifts is Chuck involved in? To be standing outside the Capitol, trying to get everybody in the chant to lock him up, we will win. Elon's the bad guy here, not me. Ham, don't look at me, look over there. Deflect, deny, all of that. You know how the system goes. So Elon's Doge team discovered that FEMA employees illegally sent $59 million last week in violation of Donald Trump's executive order to house illegal aliens in New York. And
consumer compliance jurisdiction away from the other banking agencies and gave it to a newly created agency, the CFPB. We retained a residual amount of that, as we just discussed, which was banks under 10 billion in assets. But the CFPB essentially took all of that when Dodd-Frank came into being.
So as it was created, when you two were working together, the Federal Reserve collaborated with the Consumer Bureau when supervising those large banks, correct?
Yes, we still retain supervision over all the holding companies and also of Fed member banks.
And let me ask you this then, does the Federal Reserve enforce consumer protection laws now for things like money transmitters?
Not for money.
That would be the consumer protection, that would be CFPB?
Yes.
Okay.
That's
And
right.
so when we're talking about collaborating with the CFPB for financial technology firms, what would the Fed Reserve now do that if the CFPB, if the hypothetical is the CFPB no longer exists, what would be the Fed's role right now with respect to technology firms?
We don't have jurisdiction over, we have jurisdiction over banks and some
And
financial
that's
market
it.
utilities.
So let me ask you this, because I know there's a number of Nevadans who file consumer reports of concerns about fraud and predators with the CFPB. The Fed Reserve doesn't receive those reports, correct?
No, I don't believe
And
so.
you have no role when it comes to consumer protection like the CFPB does, correct?
Unless you're a Fed member bank that has 10 billion or less in assets, then we have jurisdiction.
Right.
on
So there is a gap. If the hypothetical is true, and what we're hearing that the CFPB is being shut down, there is a gap, what we're hearing in enforcement out there, and particularly when it comes to consumer protection. Is that, would you say that's true?
Yes, for all banks that we don't
Yeah.
supervise.
And I think that's the concern we're all having right now, is this concern of when we're looking to streamline government. And listen, I'll be the first to tell you, there's a lot of bloat. We need to streamline it. We need to address regulations and overreach. But there's a strategic way to do it, and not this burn down the house that is going to harm people across the country, including in my state, those Nevadans that are looking for some sort of enforcement around consumer protection law. So that's what you're hearing from many of us on our side of the aisle here.
Can I just very briefly add that we do have some residual enforcement authorities, but what we don't have is examination authority. And for the banks that the CFPB supervises.
Thank you. Let me ask you this, and we talked about this over the phone, and I understand it may be difficult to answer this, but the Federal Reserve Board members have been clear that future interest rate cuts are unlikely to happen despite the strong economy. But there are folks in my home that are in my state that are waiting to buy a home. And we know that's still an issue, the high prices right now for home affordability. You add the interest rates to it, it is a problem. So
why do we need to pay for a service like this?
Well, for issues that are really important to you, accuracy is really important. What we found with all the different AIs out there is that on average, they're incorrect 37% of the time.
Studies about AI's accuracy rates vary, but aside from possible errors, there's also the rabbit hole of going down an internet black hole when you have a question. Just ask Carol Cameron. For the past decade, she says her subscription to Just Answer has helped her solve issues with her computer, car, and pet's health, even walked her through
the storm. As the second storm moves through parts of the deep south into the lower Mississippi Valley, as we go into tomorrow afternoon and into tomorrow evening, with that slight risk across Louisiana into Mississippi and Alabama. The impacts are going to be far-reaching. Some places could see between 5 to 10 inches of snow. You've got an ice threat across the central Appalachians. And then you've got that second storm system moving into the Great Lakes states. That will bring upwards of nearly a foot of snow in some places. The atmosphere recharges, and you've got an atmospheric river lining up over on the West Coast as we head into Friday and into the weekend. Talk snow. The first one starts to bring the mid-Atlantic snow today, and then you got that second system bringing snow from the Midwest into the upper Great Lakes states into the day tomorrow. A lot of snow, Vlad. Several rounds of it again. Nearly 12 inches of snow in parts of northern Michigan. Back to you.
Oh boy. All right, Grant Gilmore, thank you very much. Still ahead, former President Trump advisor Steve Bannon just pleaded guilty to defrauding donors in a border wall scheme. What we know about the deal he made with prosecutors. You're streaming CBS News 24/7.
So you need to take a rage shower and shave off everything that annoyed you today. Bad traffic, toxic boss. Does anyone besides me know how to load a dishwasher? Smooth it over with some lotion and disassociate till tomorrow. Billy.
The wildfires in Los Angeles have forced thousands of neighbors to evacuate, and many will not have a home to return to. Feeding America supports communities before, during, and after disasters as part of a nationwide network. We're working closely with the Los Angeles Regional Food Bank and other nearby food banks to assess damage and provide water, food, and other essentials. Donate now to reach families affected by disasters like the fires at feedingamerica.org/disaster.
This is Maggie. Maggie has always wanted more power, more security, more value. So when Maggie discovered Link Smart Home Security with more battery life, more simplicity, and more convenience without spending more, well, it's given Maggie what she's always wanted. More. Blink and get more.
With Amazon Photos, Prime members get unlimited full-resolution photo storage and 5 gigabytes of video storage, so you can securely store your digital photos. To get started, download the Amazon Photos app.
Maggie has always wanted more, so she got Blink Smart Home Security with the Blink app. Only the Blink app gives you Blink Moments, which stitches together footage from all your cameras. So you can see what happened in an instant. Oh, boomer. Really? Get more of the story with the app that gives you more. Blink and get more.
Are facing as they fight to survive.
The United States still has that glimmer of hope for people to come here.
Fighting for a future. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Clearly fun.
Smart. Clearly uplifting.
Clearly CBS Mornings.
Oscar-winning actors Tilda Swinton and Adrian Brody. Plus, can you believe Heat and Color? And Close Up on the Rising Sun.
As we reported, former Trump advisor Steve Bannon has just pleaded guilty in a New York City courtroom. He's charged with fraud in the so-called We Build the Wall scheme. CBS News political reporter and attorney Katrina Kaufman has been in court following this and joins me now to talk about it. So Katrina, first of all, what is the We Build the Wall scheme? People need to understand what that is because it's been out of the public eye for a bit.
Basically, this was a scheme where Steve Bannon, along with a few other people, raised over $25 million. And it was intended to, they said, build a wall along the US-Mexico border. They were going to do it privately, and they did ultimately build about 3 miles of wall. But the accusations here are that they were funneling money to the CEO of this organization in particular, and the 3 other people were already sentenced to prison in a federal in a federal case. But at the time, Steve Bannon was pardoned by President Trump. That was during his first presidency. So New York then brought these charges against Steve Bannon in this state case that we just had the hearing for now.
So what do we know about this plea deal?
Steve Bannon pled guilty for a conditional discharge. So he pled guilty to scheming to defraud in the first degree, which was one of 5 counts that he was charged with. And in exchange, he can't serve as the director of a nonprofit in New York. He also can't raise money for charities with assets in the state. And an additional aspect to this is that he's not allowed to use any of the donor data because they got hundreds of thousands of donations from hundreds of thousands of people in the scheme. So he can't use or sell any of that data, Vlad.
All right, Katrina Kaufman, downtown New York City for us, breaking it all down. Appreciate it as always, Katrina. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, folks, much more ahead. Stay with us. You're streaming CBS News 24/7.
Okay, guys, ceremony starts in 5.
To develop what they call anti-asteroid defenses. And NASA sent an unmanned spacecraft in 2022, I think, right? It's crashing into an asteroid to try to change the course. So was that
Yes,
successful?
and that was a very, very successful mission.
Okay, so we have tools in our toolbox.
Yes, absolutely. So that was the NASA's DART mission for double asteroid because it was a binary asteroid redirect test. It was an impactor that changed very, very slightly, but changed the orbit of that impact, or changed the orbit of that asteroid via a physical impact, and it worked. It worked amazingly.
It's like a giant slingshot in space.
And
you know?
yeah,
It's
it's
crazy.
crazy.
Anything else when they say that they're working on defenses for this that you know of, besides just kind of running into it?
Yeah, so not all of the defenses are as exciting as a NASA mission like that. A lot of the defenses are just infrastructure. So our continued observations of this object with as many telescopes as possible, but these are small telescopes that can observe this asteroid. They're also ground-based facilities. This is just kind of standard, but improving NASA technology and infrastructure that we need to maintain. We need to continue funding. We need to continue having the people and the expertise to develop these. And so NASA is not immune from all.
Want more, but we live in fiscally constrained times where we need to be responsible with taxpayer dollars. With $37 trillion in debt, that's a national security liability as well. So we're going to work with Capitol Hill. President's going to lead the way. on making sure the troops have the resources they need and that we truly rebuild our military just like President Trump did in the first term.
And President Biden vowed against sending U.S. troops into Ukraine. Would you be open to sending U.S. troops into Ukraine to track weapons shipments?
We're not sending U.S. troops to Ukraine.
You talked about wanting to welcome Elon Musk and Doge into the Pentagon potentially in the next few weeks. Do you expect him to start unilaterally cutting programs and contracts the way he's done at USAID and other agencies? And are there any limits or supervision you'd want to place on his team given his conflicts of interest?
Well, we've been in touch with, I've been in touch with Elon Musk, who's a great patriot, interested in advancing the America First agenda, knows that President Trump got 77 million votes and a mandate from the American people, and part of that is bringing actual business-like efficiency to government, hence what Doge is doing. We've been talking to them in partnership with them, and as I said on social media, we welcome Doge to the Pentagon, and I hope to welcome Elon to the Pentagon very soon, and his team, working in collaboration with us. There are waste, redundancies, and headcounts in headquarters that need to be addressed. There's just no doubt. Look at a lot of the climate programs that have been pursued at the Defense Department. The Defense Department is not in the business of climate change, solving the global thermostat. We're in the business of deterring and winning wars. So things like that we want to look for to find efficiencies, and many others, the way we acquire weapon system, procurement. There's plenty of places where we want the keen eye of Doge, but we'll do it in coordination. We're not going to do things that are to the detriment of American operational or tactical capabilities. President Trump is committed to delivering the best possible military. The Defense Department is not USAID. USAID's got a lot of problems that I talked about with the troops pursuing globalist agendas that don't have a connection to America first. That's not the Defense Department, but we're also not perfect either. So where we can find billions of dollars, and he's right to say billions, inside the Defense Department, every dollar we save there is a dollar that goes to warfighters, and that's good for the American people.
With Logan with Newsmax, Mr. Secretary, since we're here in Africa, I have a question about Africa. Now, when you served, you fought jihadists in the Middle East, and there's a lot of jihadists in Africa, whether it's ISIS, Al Qaeda, Al Shabaab, go on and on. How do you plan to handle that? I'm not saying put troops on the ground in Africa and fight them, but are you concerned that there could be some sort of cell that might be plotting attacks against other parts of the world, trying to recruit soldiers because it's Africa with a growing population? How concerned are you about the jihad threat in Africa today?
Definitely concerned. I mean, anybody of my generation that served in Iraq and Afghanistan or been a part of post 9/11 understands the threat of global jihad, especially the desire to export that against our allies in Europe or Israel or certainly the United States of America. So the counterterrorism threat focused on those who would seek to do us harm is of the highest priority, which is why you saw what AFRICOM did so well in that strike in Somalia. Where we see those growing, plotting, or planning with increased capabilities, we will strike. And that pertains to Islamist organizations all across the continent. But we have to work with partners and allies. I mean, foreign internal defense and security force assistance. I was with Green Berets this morning. You know, we think of Green Berets in the context of post 9/11, right? Kicking down doors, and they've been really good at that. But what they're best at is doing security force assistance and foreign internal defense, where they work with local security forces to build up their capabilities so that it's indigenous forces fighting Islamists because they want to secure their country as well. And AFRICOM is very directly committed to doing that. That's a mission very much worth resourcing. And Africa is very much the front lines of a fight from Islamists. You've got Christian populations that are under siege in Africa and have been ignored for far too long. And American interest there, it matters a great deal. And Islamists, we're not going to allow them to maintain a foothold, especially to try to strike at America.
We're going to finish up with two questions from these two local apps.
Okay, one more here and then here.
John Banner from Stars and Stripes. Also related to AFRICOM and Somalia, during the end of President Trump's first term, he elected to pull forces out of Somalia and switch to more of a rotational concept. President Biden sent troops back in there on a full-time basis. What's your vision going forward for Somalia? Do you want to maintain troops there continuously, or are you looking more towards deploying them back?
Well, I'm going to listen to commanders on the ground, first and foremost, as does the president. And he's charged me with, hey, give me the best advice, but also keep your ear to the ground of what's most effective. But he's also being very clear that we're not trying to have American boots all over the globe. Where we can do counterterrorism effectively over the horizon, that's the preference. But we'll review the force posture there and, with the generals doing the heavy lifting and take it into consideration, no doubt. But thankfully, we had the intelligence capabilities to do the kind of strike that we saw, and we believe we can do more of that.
Franz, last question. So you renamed the name of Fort Liberty into Fort Bragg, and you honored a private first class who lost.
It means the legacy of an institution that generations of Americans have mobilized through and served at is back. I mean, it's a shame what was done to vets, service members, their families, who were born there, deployed out of there, lived there, I was with airborne troops here, some of which spent 25 years at Fort Bragg. I never called it Fort Liberty because it wasn't Fort Liberty, it's Fort Bragg. And so I was honored to be able to put my signature on that. By the way, with the support of the President of the United States, who set the tone on this and said, I want Fort Bragg back. And we're honored to support a private first class who received a Purple Heart and the Silver Star at the Battle of the Bulge. We're honoring a private first class, and I'm proud that we have a Marine Corporal as the Vice President of the United States too. Junior enlisted have never seen better days. But it's about that legacy. It's about the connection to the community, to those who've served. And we're not, as the president has said, and I've said as well, we're not done there. There are other bases that have been renamed that erodes that very same legacy. There's a reason I say Bragg and Benning when I walked into the Pentagon on day one, but it's not just Bragg and Benning. There are a lot of other service members that have connections, and we're going to do our best to restore it. It's an honor to do so. Thank you all for your time. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. We got more time later.
Thank you.
Overnight repo facility, reverse repo. So yes, it's an ongoing thing, and we're not yet where we're headed.
So what kind of pace can we expect? And I know that obviously there's going to be a lot of factors like what happens to the economy over the course of next year. But if things were going to go along the way they are today, you've already said the economy's doing well. Inflation's a little higher than we want it to be at 2.6%, but unemployment's at 4%. If these conditions, and I think you used the word stable quite a bit, if these conditions were to remain stable throughout the course of the year, would you have a range to give us of where the balance sheet might be if we were talking again here in January 2026?
We basically we're going to be looking at reserve conditions in reserve markets, and trying to stop a little bit above what we consider ample. And we think we're meaningfully above that now. We can't put a number on it because you can't directly know the demand for reserves other than by observing behavior in the market and then putting a little bit of a buffer on it. So I can't give you an exact number, but for now it's ongoing, and we have ways to go.
What kind of conditions would have to happen for you to start going back to quantitative easing?
So quantitative easing. That's a tool we tend to use when we're at the effective lower bound and we can't cut interest rates anymore. So nothing like what you're seeing in the current day. It's a different test for stopping quantitative tightening, but we would use QE going forward only in a situation where rates are at zero, and we're a long way from zero now.
So then you think that if, again, just generally speaking, then if things will remain stable, you'll continue to unwind the balance sheet, you'll continue the quantitative tightening. Can't give me a range on this. Is that what I hear you saying?
That's right. That's right.
Okay, great. Well, I encourage you to keep doing that because, again, I think that's important to be able to make sure that you've got powder for the next issue that we may face. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate being here.
Senator Warner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Powell, good to see you. One of the things we've talked about in the past, and I got 2 or 3 issues I'm going to get through fairly quickly, is that that while our regulatory framework should always promote financial innovation, that innovation can't come at the expense of things like anti-money laundering, consumer protection, financial stability. I continue to worry in many of these hearings where we keep seeing this regulatory creep outside the boundaries of traditional financial regulation. I think we're starting the system from scratch. Few of us would design it this way, but it is one of the reasons why I'm looking forward to working with Chair Scott and my colleague, Senator Lummis, on framework at looking at stable coins in particular within the regulatory perimeter. I know my friend Bill Haggerty just introduced a bill in this area. I'm looking at trying to make sure we get those guardrails put in place, and how it touches the Fed is something that's terribly important to me. I know you and I have talked in the past about the notional idea of same activity, same regulation in the non-bank sector. If you'd like to wax briefly on this question around stable coins and how we think about them in the same point of, if they are similar to other activities, should they not have the same regulatory structure?
So we definitely support these efforts to create a regulatory framework around stablecoins. Stablecoins may have a big future with consumers and businesses. We can't know that now, but it is important for the development of stablecoins in a safe and sound manner, and a manner that protects consumers and savers and all, that there be a regulatory framework. So we see these bills, and we're in contact as we were in the last Congress, and trying to add our technical thoughts and how to do this. And we think it's a very constructive exercise.
But we do think, we have a lot of expertise in this session, and there are people come with lots of opinions on everything in crypto, from over the top to the other end of the spectrum. And I'm gonna need to rely on your expertise as well as we try to work through some framework for stable coins. I know there are a lot of earlier questions on CFPB. I think the record is pretty darn good. It's returned $20 billion to consumers. Matter of fact, the last time we had the previous chair here, Chair Rohit, Mr. Chopra, we were talking about $55 million to Virginians. I do have to mention this more for my colleagues. Tim Kaine and I did a teletown hall last night. Lots of things happening in Virginia. Normally we would get maybe 3,000, 5,000, 6,000 folks on a teletown hall. We had 60,000 last night. I have not seen anything like that in my time up on here on the Hill, and a huge amount of concern about what the Doge boys are doing, whether our information is safe, whether privacy is protected. I had one lady say, in light of what was happening at CFPB, and while there's not a direct connection, she's saying, is her deposits at her bank safe? We tried to give her a assurance, but I said, you know what, ma'am, I'm going to be talking to the chairman of the Federal Reserve tomorrow. And with this diminution or shuttering, at least at the time being, of the CFPB, can I tell, I believe her name was Mary, can I tell Mary from Virginia that her bank account is safe?
I think bank accounts overall across the economy are safe. Yes, we've still got deposit insurance at the FDIC, and the banking system is well capitalized and safe.
Well, again, I think the concern was being raised was that the diminution of consumer protections lent her concerns about whether that dollar being safe. Last thing I want to recognize is that there's been reports in the media about the thinness in the treasury markets, the number of additional bonding that we're going to have to do, particularly with so many of these unpaid tax cuts. Matter of fact, one of the things that was really striking to me was that yesterday the president mentioned how he was, quote, examining treasury debt payments for possible fraud, and suggested that our debt might not be as high as possible. We all understand the full faith and credit of the United States is based upon our reputation. If this president were to suddenly say, I'm wiping off X amount of debt because I don't believe we owe it, what kind of effect would that have on both stability of the dollar and the overstability of our economy?
It will probably not surprise you that I will defer to you on that question.
So you think it would be, from a Fed standpoint, the President of the United States starts to say we're not going to pay our treasury debt. You're going to have no view at all?
I'm not going to comment on things that the president says.
I I would like to see us at some point get a stronger answer on that, because I think that in light of the president's willingness to shut down agencies willy-nilly, his ability to potentially curtail payment of debt, I think would have devastating consequences on our economy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Britt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, there's been a lot of conversation both in and out of this hearing room today. Conversations about a co-president referencing Elon Musk, referencing the work that Doge is doing. I think it's important to remember that President Trump ran on this. I mean, he said we're going to look for wasteful spending across our